Well, good morning, sir. How are you doing today?
I am fantastic. It's good to see you, Ben.
Good to
We
see you
just
too,
need to
sir.
put we just need to put Ben down there. Constitution vet. I know. I know that's your YouTube channel, right?
Yeah, that's my brand name in this network society.
Yes, yes. It's ooh, you're already,
Like that? Yeah.
nice transition. So I need to be Sweet Home Maricopa, I guess.
Well, Michael is easier to say, but I mean, you say Pseudo Maricopa way more than you say Michael.
I do. All right. I'm gonna a little bit behind the scenes unveiling for anybody that doesn't know is I got so much crazy stuff going on that I leave it to you completely to pick the topics, right? Sometimes I chime in,
Yeah.
but when I saw what we are going to be talking about today, I'm like, okay, good. This is something I'm happy to hear. I'm happy to get Ben's take on and see what comes to mind. So I come into this cold. I've already done 2 shows this morning, literally straight off 2 shows. I did about 40 minutes with Doug Tenaple, whose YouTube channel is blowing up. He by the way, just so
Mhm.
you know, he
Yeah.
got he's up to 3 days ago he was at about 32,000 subs, and today he's like at 47,000 subs or something. They got 12,000 subs, so he's back in action, and that's good for me because why am I going on this? Oh, I did a show with Doug this morning, and then I did my Bible every morning show just before this.
Yeah.
And so and then I have a job that I'm going to be getting to for 8 hours, and then this and that, and so I'm grateful for you that you are able to dedicate some time in your week to come up with topics for us here. It's just like, it's to me, it's like icing on the cake when I get to be on camera with you and with Doug, and even in
Yeah.
Bible every morning.
Yeah.
It's like I just love
Well, thank you.
coming on. Yeah. All right. So enough of me rambling. Ben, take it away. What are we talking about?
We are talking about the change from mass society to a network society. And so when I come up with these ideas to talk about each week, it's after I'm done teaching all day. I'm done teaching, I'm sitting on my emails, I'm about to go home, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, what can we cover? And since there's so many things going on right now, like dozens of things happening all across the world, the fog of war, so to speak, is pretty thick right now. It's hard to determine what's accurate, what's not accurate, who can I trust, who can I not trust, and that's the biggest problem nowadays. And I teach my students this all the time. I teach them, don't just rely on the mass media. Don't just rely on what the big names are telling you, because they might be wrong, or they might have a bias. They might have a narrative that they're trying to push. So you need to be willing to look at other sources. You need to be willing to network yourself, just like you network yourself to find a job. You do the same thing for finding information. You need to be willing to go to the corners, to like the 10th O of Google. You need to be willing to go to those places to find information. But the reason why it's hard to do is that it takes time.
Man, I wish you were my teacher in high school. All right. So can you define these terms as
Yeah,
mass society versus network society?
mass society. Yeah. So you probably have more experience in this than I do. But my question for you is, when did you stop trusting the mass media, like the big mainstream media sources?
It was 1990. This is how far back it goes. 19. Well, actually, even before I became a Christian, I was, you know, kind of counterculture. I was a my dad had underground comic books. That was the beginning of it, right? And I won't go into what those comic books were,
Sure.
but it wasn't mainstream, right? And
Right.
so I was exposed to underground culture from early on. So I was
Mhm.
aware that there's the mainstream culture, and then there's there's subcultures and even countercultures in narratives that resist. Uh,
Mhm.
some people, and maybe it's ingrained in us as humans, to just want to counter the authority, right? And it's a healthy, we should have a healthy skepticism, and I think that's what it stems from. Is we need to question somebody's
Mhm.
asserting something. We need to, see what authority they have. Where does that authority come from? Why should I believe you, rather than just believing? But that can be an unhealthy thing. You can go to the extreme and question and deny everything that somebody in authority says. So your
Right.
question to me is, when did I, probably specifically the government, and come into, or be red pilled, I guess. When was I red pilled? It was
Yeah.
in the 90s when I discovered Rush Limbaugh.
Mm.
I was not, I was
Okay.
politically active before I became, not politically active.
Yeah.
I was kind of paying attention to the government, very, not current events or anything, but before I was a Christian. But after I became a Christian, I was like learning Christianity, and it was brand new. And then somebody recommended Rush Limbaugh, and that was it, right? And, oh, okay,
Right.
okay, we're supposed
Right.
to pay attention to what's going on in the world and in our culture, and not ignore it.
Right.
Not think that God's just going to fix it all. It's like, no, God wants to use you to fix it.
Right.
So
So
yeah,
thank
that's
you
my
for sharing that.
soapbox.
That's awesome. So I would say I started questioning. I started losing my trust in the mass media after I got out of the Air Force. That was in 2015. I graduated high school in 2006. I went to the Air Force to serve my country. I was government property for almost 9 years. And I was ignorant. I was super naive. I just went with the flow. I didn't question anything. And to be honest with you, there were some parts where it was great. But looking back at it, it's like, man, I had no idea. I was so blind. But here's the thing. Here's how I define it. Okay. Mass media, this mass society is controlled by the mass media. It's controlled by a select few in power. And those select few, they determine what's being pushed out. They determine what the society is going to know. You can see that easily in World War II with all the propaganda, all of the radio, all the video. Everything came in through a very filtered lens, and it had to be a certain way for a certain reason. For example, if you look at World War II propaganda, I love showing that to my kids. They see these classic American propaganda posters. On one hand, it unites the American society against a common enemy. On the other hand, it could risk the people fighting in the war not being prepared. For example, the classic slap a Jap propaganda that was all over our society. Young boys would see that and say, oh, they're just stupid buck-eyed cartoons. I can go fight them in the Pacific. Yeah, that's easy. I'll go join the Marine Corps.
Mm-hmm.
They're just dumb cartoons. No, they were not. So when they got to the Pacific, we were not ready to fight the Japanese soldier because we were expecting to fight someone who understood the rules of war. These guys practiced the art of war for thousands of years, and they did not comprehend surrender.
Yeah, it
So
wasn't
my
in there.
point is, we were not ready for that. Fast forward to the Vietnam era. Again, we go into Vietnam with the same mindset of we're America, we're great, we're fantastic. And don't get me wrong, America is great and it's fantastic. But we went in there with the old school mass media mentality. But then something happened. People started paying attention. They started asking questions. Civilian reporters started going over to Vietnam and showing a new perspective, a different narrative that countered the mass narrative. Okay. Now I don't have much experience in that era as other people do. But in my view, the network society really started, in my opinion, once MySpace came out,
Mm.
then
Mm-hmm.
Facebook, then YouTube.
So it was a technological revolution.
Right. To be fair, before that, you did have newspapers, you did have radio programs, you did have TV shows, but you didn't really have the ability for someone to post their honest thoughts on something and the whole world can see like that. And so what's happening is the network society is moving away from just having a select few control the narrative. Now it's everyone has a stake in this narrative. Everyone can make their own narrative, can say their own thing. And so the beauty of a network society is that you start having these town squares form everywhere, not just one. We've talked about this before, how you had that virtual town square, how it was controlled and regulated, and now more and more thoughts and perspectives are coming into that. Well, that's what a network society is, but it's just multiplied. And so now scholars have noticed that people all across the world are losing trust in the mass society, the mass media. Here in America, when the average person can look at something being shown on CNN and Fox News, okay, and when they can say, wait a second, that doesn't seem right. Let me double check that. That action of you double checking something and looking at other sources from sources that aren't as powerful, aren't as mainstream, that's the difference. That's the network society. And as flawed as our country is, we still have this thing called the First Amendment. We still have the rights that we've always had. The struggle now, as we're seeing right before us, is this battle between the mass society and the network society.
I agree and disagree. I'm not really disagreeing, but there was 1,000 different directions I wanted to go when it was my turn to talk. But the network society, so I see what MySpace and then AOL or whatever, when that all started, and then Facebook and YouTube and Twitter, and now we have, you name it, ways to network with people globally around the globe. But these are tools that we have created to meet a natural need. And I would say the real network society began when Jesus said, "Go make disciples of all nations." Right? Go. Let's network this whole planet together. Right. There is a network here that can't be crushed. Right. And so when technology caught up, finally, right, now we have technology. Now you can reach all around the world. Well, within reason, or within, the constraints of each country. And I like what Jacqueline says here. She kind of highlights the point. We were not taught about other countries. Many people had no idea about Asia or Africa. So we are now capable of knowing the international news, like knowing about what's going on around the world. But at the same time, we only have so much bandwidth, right? Like it's only so many hours in a day, right? You only have so much time to educate yourself. But with the advent of information technology, we can accelerate that knowledge, right? We can get our headlines and skim a trusted news source and be at least somewhat informed of some major things happening every day all around the world. But the question is, who do you trust, right? If you have the capacity to network, who is worth networking with? Right? Who is worth networking with? We have people that come to This Way Network because we say some things that they register with, and that, there it is. That, it's like, okay, these guys are reflecting what feels like truth. And that's what I believe. I believe that people will come here, and people listen to my Sweet Home Maricopa channel, whatever, that they're identifying with me, maybe my personality maybe draws some people, but it's my take on what's going on. And because YouTube has this capacity, or behind the scenes, you can look in your analytics, and there's a section that shows what the majority of your viewers, people that watch your content, people that choose to include you as part of their network, right? It will show you a list of the top other sources Like they'll watch you and then all these other sources, and it lists the top
Right.
15. Like you can go
Right.
in the analytics and see what other sources. And on my Sweet Home Maricopa channel, when I look at that, it's like, oh, people are considering me news because they, it's like Newsmax and the local Fox station or whatever. And that, so it's like, oh, I'm not the wing nut. Like it's not.
You're part of their network.
I'm part, right. I am networked into them.
Right.
And vice versa, right? I watch some of those channels as well. So and sometimes I'm getting the same information and putting my spin on it or have another insight. Okay, so what good is all this? Where is this going?
Well, to me, the good in all this is that it's making people better critical thinkers. Whenever I'm a teacher, I mean, I'm seeing the next generation every single day, and I can tell you, there have been some moments where they've been really disheartened. It's like, Ben, I'm trying to find information, but I don't know who to trust. I'm like, good. I'm glad that you're saying that because that tells me you're thinking. It tells me that you're not just blindly accepting what's being told to you. You're willing to ask questions. And so where do we go with this? Well, we go further with this by being comfortable with having multiple town squares, not just one. The way we go forward with this is not becoming a place like China, not becoming North Korea, not becoming even some European countries. It's gotten better, but the beauty of the First Amendment is so precious. We move forward by protecting that at all costs. That's how we move forward. And by, you will still have major news networks. That will always be there. But don't just rely on the few elite telling you what to do. That's the difference.
Well, like you said, we'll still have major news networks. Yeah, we still have horses and carriages.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, well, okay.
Some people rely on them for whatever.
Sure. And the thing is, it's like,
I'm sure there has some use.
Right. Well, I'm sure there are good people in those news sources. I can't say that every single person in there is corrupt and horrible. No, I can't say that. But I think the way we move forward is for people being comfortable being uncomfortable. Because the only way you learn is being uncomfortable. The only way you grow is to get outside of your comfort zone, challenge yourself, and look at all the perspectives, not just one.
Well, you just defined Donald Trump. Right? Make people uncomfortable. It takes a polarizing figure to make some people uncomfortable to wake them up, right? To show them, I didn't realize the deep state killed Kennedy.
Right? And do I agree with everything that Trump has done? No, of course not. But I'd much rather have a flawed guy like him, who is that individual who's always been that way he has been since the late 80s. He's Donald freaking Trump. Like, we don't act shocked when you're like, oh wait, he did that. I'm like, yeah, that's how he's always been. So
you're fired. You're fired.
Yeah. I mean, he's always been out there. He's always been a showman. He's always been someone who will say whatever he wants. He's unpredictable, and that's what made him so great. But what made him different, though, is that when he made a promise, he actually kept to it. And when he said, I'm going to do these things, he actually did these things. And he led our country like a business. And in my opinion, that's how it should always be. But that's just my side take.
Well, what I love about the network society is, it wasn't as possible. I guess it's always technically been possible, but without information, like without high-speed internet, right? It's only increased exponentially, right, with technology. Right. And the good thing is you can't crush it, right? You can't. It isn't centralized. You can't find, here's the hub of that worldview. Let's go and destroy that hub so that the worldview will go away. No, that can't happen. It won't happen. And it's why, they've been trying to crush Christianity for 2,000 years. And every time they smash down on Christianity, it goes, nope, we're just going to spread and get bigger. right? We're just going to spread and
Yeah.
increase.
Then you have inventions like the printing press
Yeah.
and Martin Luther,
Yeah.
who uses that invention to show everyone what the Bible actually says, not what the church wants you to think it says. And
Right.
I could say that would also be a big moment in time when this network society started spreading, and everyone could be like, wait a second, hold on. I'm thinking for myself now.
So the difference is one person or one small group trying to control a narrative versus
Right.
this innumerable disparate voices filtering through the facts rather than trying to instill a narrative that people will follow.
Right.
It's let's find out what's really going on. And so
Right.
I believe, and this is just based on my insights in spending time relating biblical principles to what's going on in the world, right? Like that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to take the word of God, understand how God behaves and how human nature is and how we behave, and take that as a mirror to the world, to mirror it on our lives and on the world, and say, oh, so what's really going on? Oh, okay,
Right.
this is human
Right.
nature, and so what I believe is coming as a result of the network society is the tearing down of strongholds, right? That's what's happening. Is as more and more people have access to more and more information, yes, it can be overwhelming. I'm so lost in the deluge. There's so many sources out there now. But at the same time, more and more people are discovering the actual truth, right? You can feel lost, but you actually are more and more people gradually. And so as the truth reveals itself, yeah, it's incumbent upon us to communicate the truth, but we can't force people to listen to it and believe it. The truth just has that flavor of truth. And when people taste it, they're like, oh, that's true. Right. And as that happens, the falsehoods that are being pushed collapse. And it may even be within our lifetime. I see Darwinism, like Darwinistic gradualism, crumbling and collapsing.
Mm-hmm.
I also see Islamism, religion by force, believe in our God or die. I see that collapsing. These are strongholds that the network society is going to tear down completely and forever, right? There will be a time in our history. We will look back at when, remember when all the universities discredited you because you didn't believe in Darwin? Right. Remember that time when you couldn't get a tenured professorship if you adhered to creationism? Remember
Right.
that? Oh, that was so crazy. We were such fools back then. Oh, remember when there was that world religion that was just trying to kill people to enforce their viewpoint? Remember that way back then? Whew, glad we got past that nonsense. Thank God for the network society, right? I believe that's just in my understanding of scripture, in my understanding of what God has in store, in my understanding of our responsibility as believers, right? I'm trying to think of chapter and verse. I read the Bible and I don't memorize the chapter and verses, but the principle of tearing down strongholds is our responsibility. It's not us sitting back and just letting God do it. God and Jesus are going to do it one day. No, we are the body of Christ. Jesus gave us our marching orders: go and make disciples, teaching all nations to obey, right? Our job is to teach the nations to obey the word of God. And so
that's the point. Obey who? Right.
Right. We are obeying. It's an inevitability. It wasn't God saying, please, please, please go and make disciples of all nations. He's saying, this is how it's going to unfold.
Right.
And I'm making it clear to you. And if you want to be a part of that, then go do it. But if you don't want to be a part of it, it's still going to happen. And it is happening in Christianity. Right. We take some hits, and, you can take polls and statistics may show, evangelicalism is on the decline or whatever. It's like, yeah, but Russia built 30,000 churches in the last 20 years, right? Think globally, right? Christianity is not just you in America. Sorry. China, as they suppress Christianity in China, they just spread and grow. And Africa is having revival. It's like Christianity is taking over the world, man. It's happening. It's been happening this whole time. There were 13 Christians. It was Jesus and the 12 disciples at one point, and now there's 2.5 billion right? 2.5 billion people on the planet that identify as Christian. You know, whether they're all practicing Bible believing Christians is irrelevant. It's actually growing. It's still growing. Anyway, there's my soapbox. Again, the network society, the point of the network society is to get truth out, right? Is for truth. It's God's design. He created humans to be creative, and those creative humans created by their creator are creative, and they created a network society. They created technology to network so that the truth can get out. Plenty of lies and falsehoods will all get out as well, but they'll fall by the way because truth is unfolding. We just need to attach ourselves to it.
I would go one step further. This network society is only good if the people in this society, in that society, are willing to be uncomfortable. If they're willing to actually seek out the truth. If they're willing to, well, do what I did in 2015 and start thinking for themselves and start realizing, wait a second, this might not be the right way. I might need to find this other way. And, you know, you can live in blissful ignorance, as I did when I was in the military. And don't get me wrong, there were some moments where it was fantastic. But once I got out and started studying history, I was like, wait a second. Wait, this is not what I was taught. This is different. Wait, hold on. And I started questioning. I started asking questions. I started digging. And when you start digging, you start establishing your networks. And that's when you become that enlightened critical thinker. And that's when you get closer to the truth, the one truth. And that's what I hope for all people. And for this season, this time of the year, it's not about gifts. It's not about presents. It's not about freaking songs playing on repeat. It's about acknowledging the true revelation of the real King coming to this world. And then making everything just the way it's supposed to be.
Bit of a tangent here. Speaking of the advantages of technology.
You tangents? No.
Yeah, right. I am one tangent. Everything. I am on a tangent from another tangent a tangent from a previous tangent, and I don't know if I'll ever get back to the first thing I was saying. But I love that more and more everything is at our fingertips. We have a supercomputer, right? Mm-hmm. We have everybody now has the capacity to be on the same page. Literally, we could, a time is coming when technology will make it actually feasible with the increasing speed of bandwidth, right? As processing gets faster and faster and faster, and more of these things get in the hands of more and more people. And there will come a day when we can literally all be in the same room, right? Once we have the VR /AR /XR goggles, right? Once the technology, because I look at, man, we have less than 2 minutes left. I'm going on a huge tangent. I look at this thing as the horse and carriage, right? There is something that is going to relegate this to just a camera that you carry with you or whatever. There's going to be another technology, which is, I believe, the VR, AR, XR environment. Those of you who don't know, look it up. XR just means virtual reality and augmented reality. Those both in one is XR. When you are able to put on these goggles and click a button and go into a room where somebody is speaking, wherever they are on the planet, every other person on the planet will technically be able to be in that same room with you. That's never been possible in history. There is coming a time when technologically it will be possible for every mind to be focused in on one speaker. Mm-hmm. That's coming, right? That is coming. Yeah. Whether that time happens in our lifetime. Oh, the rose. You know what? Let's go out with the rose here. The rose. Thank you, Michael and Constitution Vet. You're welcome. The rose. Welcome. We go on tangents here, and we do talk about things that may interest you guys. So hopefully you've got something out of this. Ben, I want you to tell me what's going on. Tell people where they can find you when you're not here.
Oh, yeah. So you can find me on YouTube. It's just a Constitution Vet. My upload schedule has been kind of wonky. I haven't done as much as I used to do, mainly because, life, time of year. But now that I'm off for the next couple of weeks, it will be a good chance for my wife and I to just breathe, refresh, recharge, recalibrate, and then start fresh the new year. So,
And we're out of time.
yeah, love you to follow us.
Go to Constitution Vet, subscribe over there. Love you guys. I'll see you next week, Ben.
Take care.
All right. Bye.